Did you know that while most history books celebrate Stonehenge as one of humanity's greatest ancient achievements, there are stone monuments in West Africa that are not only older, but cover a vastly larger area and required even more sophisticated social organization to build? Yet most people have never heard of them. This is the story of the Senegambian stone circles, one of Africa's most remarkable archaeological wonders and proof that African civilizations were building monumental stone structures long before many of the world's famous ancient sites even existed. What you're about to discover challenges everything you thought you knew about where and when humanity's great stone-building traditions began. In the savannas of West Africa, stretching across what is now Senegal and Gambia, lie over 29,000 standing stones arranged in more than 1,000 stone circles. These aren't small markers or crude rock piles. These are carefully quarried, shaped, and transported megaliths, some weighing several tons, arranged in precise, circular formations that required advanced planning, engineering knowledge, and coordinated labor from entire communities. The oldest of these circles date back over 1,500 years, with some estimates suggesting construction began even earlier, and they continued to be built over more than a millennium. To put this in perspective, Stonehenge was built around 5,000 years ago, but its construction period was much shorter and its geographical spread far smaller than the vast network of stone circles that dot West Africa. The scale alone is staggering. We're not talking about a single site that archaeologists stumbled upon. We're talking about a cultural tradition that spanned centuries and covered thousands of square kilometers. From Wasu and Kerbach in Gambia to Sine and Gain and Waner in Senegal, these stone circles represent one of the largest concentrations of megalithic monuments anywhere in the world. Each circle contains between 8 and 14 standing stones, carefully positioned to form perfect or near-perfect circles. The stones themselves are cylindrical or polygonal, meticulously shaped from laterite, a type of iron-rich rock common in tropical regions. Some stand over 2 meters tall. Some are fronted by smaller stones that archaeologists believe mark burial sites or serve ceremonial purposes. Here's what makes this even more remarkable. The people who built these monuments had to identify suitable rock formations, quarry massive stones using Stone Age tools, transport them over considerable distances without wheels or large draft animals, and then erect them with precision. This required knowledge of leverage, of weight distribution, of material properties. This required planning on a massive scale, organizing hundreds or thousands of people, coordinating labor, providing food and resources for workers, maintaining this effort over generations. The Senegambian stone circles weren't built in a few years by a single community. They represent a sustained cultural and engineering tradition passed down through generations, refined over centuries, indicating a society with stable governance, shared spiritual beliefs, and the organizational capacity to undertake monumental projects. But here's the question we should be asking. If these monuments are so significant, if they represent such advanced engineering and social organization, why are they so little known outside of West Africa and archaeological circles? The answer reveals as much about how history gets told as it does about the monuments themselves. For too long, African achievements have been minimized, ignored, or attributed to outside influence. When European colonizers encountered stone structures in Africa, they often refused to believe Africans had built them. We saw this with Great Zimbabwe, where colonial archaeologists insisted the ruins must have been constructed by Phoenicians or Arabs, anyone but the indigenous African population. The same pattern of denial has kept sites like the Senegambian stone circles out of mainstream historical narratives, even though the archaeological evidence is unambiguous. These were built by West African peoples as part of their own cultural and spiritual traditions. The stone circles served as burial grounds for community leaders and important figures, with archaeological excavations revealing grave goods, pottery, and iron tools that tell us about the societies that built them. These weren't isolated villages struggling to survive. These were complex societies with specialized craftspeople, with trade networks extending across West Africa, with spiritual and cultural practices sophisticated enough to inspire multi-generational building projects. The distribution of the circles suggests they marked territories, ceremonial centers, or pilgrimage sites. Some researchers believe they served astronomical purposes aligned with celestial events, though this remains debated. What's certain is that they held profound meaning for the people who built them, meaning important enough to justify the enormous labor and resources required for their construction. Think about what it takes to create a tradition like this. You need more than just technical skill. You need a society stable enough that people can dedicate time to non-survival activities. You need cultural continuity, the ability to pass knowledge, techniques, and spiritual significance across generations without losing the thread. You need a worldview that values permanence, that seeks to mark the landscape with monuments that will outlast individual lives. These are the hallmarks of civilization in its truest sense. These circles represent African engineering, African spirituality, African social organization, and African cultural depth stretching back over a millennium. In 2006, UNESCO recognized the Senegambian stone circles as a World Heritage Site, finally giving them the international recognition they deserve. But recognition from an international body, while important, doesn't change the fundamental truth. These monuments have always been significant, always been evidence of African achievement, always been worthy of study and celebration. What changed was the world's willingness to acknowledge African history on its own terms. The Senegambian stone circles remind us that Africa's contributions to human civilization aren't peripheral, they're central. That African peoples have always been builders, engineers, and creators of lasting monuments. That the narrative which portrays pre-colonial Africa as lacking in achievement or organization is not just wrong. It's a deliberate distortion designed to justify centuries of exploitation and dismissal. When we recover these histories, when we study these monuments and share their stories, we're not being generous to Africa. We're simply being accurate about human history. So what does it mean that most people can learn about Stonehenge in elementary school, but never hear about stone circles in West Africa that represent an even larger and longer-lasting megalithic tradition? It means we still have work to do in decolonizing historical education, in ensuring that African achievements receive the same attention and respect as achievements from other continents. It means that channels like this one, content that centers African history and African voices, matter more than ever. If this video opened your eyes to African history you never learned in school, hit that like button and subscribe to Did You Know Africa? There are countless more stories like this one. Stories of African innovation, African achievement, African contributions to human civilization that deserve to be told and celebrated. Every subscription helps ensure these histories reach more people, that African stories get told by people who understand their significance. The standing stones of the Senegambian region still rise from the West African savanna,